The reactions to the Nintendo Switch 2 have been all over the place, especially one with confusion when it comes to what is going on with the Nintendo Switch 2 price. And that is something that we're going to talk about after fans have spammed drop the price, raging on Nintendo's Treehouse Live segments. These are usually segments full of people excited when it comes to the games that are coming out for the new system, or just games in general, if it's one of those times where they do it like after E3 back then, or if they just decide to have a Treehouse Live segment. So the fact that there's so many people saying drop the price and raging, this discussion is going to talk about what is Nintendo going to do, some of the reactions from there, and how things are actually going to change if you really do have a problem when it comes down to it. But I first want to establish my own opinion on the backlash that has happened at this point, because I've sprinkled it in on some of the videos that I really wanted to talk about certain games and all that, but I wanted to make sure that I made it very clear. I do feel that $80 for some games, obviously there's been some misinformation about $90 compared to like the conversion rate, or more like Europe, and then some YouTubers saying 90 and then saying it's like that everywhere, then the game keys and all that. But basically the $80 for Mario Kart World, in addition to $80 for select Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Nintendo Switch 1 games, being $80 with some of them having DLC or whatever, Tears of the Kingdom, that's definitely a bit too pricey. I feel that Nintendo went up a bit too high. 70 was always like, oh man, you're kind of pushing it with 70, and it's okay, I guess, that a game like Donkey Kong Bonanza is a $70 game, and there's also some games that are cheaper than that. There are some games that are 60, there are games that are 40, third-party wise, so it looks like developers are going to have a pretty wide, flexible range of freedom, but at the same time, people buy Nintendo systems for the big Nintendo games, which sometimes a lot of third-party people, or people that just love like Microsoft and Sony, they don't understand that per se. But yeah, people buy Nintendo systems for Nintendo games. That's the most important thing at the end of the day, are going to be those games, those big first party titles that help push the system. Then of course the third parties kind of layer in the support underneath that. Now to me, $80, like I said, is just way too much. I think that the sticker shock with not necessarily the system, I think that the system price is not bad for what you're getting. You're getting 120 frames per second, up to 120 frames. You're getting 4K 60 dock for certain games that support that. A lot of games you're going to get 1440p or 60 frames per second or 120. You're going to get the quality that people have been complaining about and have been asking for quite some time. A lot of the games run so much better. The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Tears of the Kingdom look beautiful on the Nintendo Switch 2, and those are going to be really cool things that people are absolutely going to want to play and own a Nintendo Switch 2 for, without having to worry about the other stuff that people usually do in order to get those games running at that, whether it's overclocking a Switch or emulation or whatever the case is. To have it officially on the Nintendo Switch 2 with upgraded playability and other features added in, that's really cool. But everything kind of puts a damper on that when you have the price so high for some of these re-releases. I do feel that that is high for these games, and I think that overall there's definitely going to be the backlash. Like, people are absolutely going to come after that, because things have just been getting more expensive and more expensive as time goes on. When it came to the PlayStation 5 and they said, hey look, we've got the fast SSD and other things to try to justify it, whether you think it's worth 70 or not, obviously it's going to be subjective. Now we have the Nintendo Switch 2 coming in, and now they're jumping over the 70 and going into 80. Nintendo dabbled their toes in the $70 range with Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and it ultimately ended up selling pretty good overall. Now they did have the voucher system that did help mitigate the costs of that overall, but still a lot of people still bought that at $70. But now at 80 for Mario Kart, and now at 80 for certain select games, that's definitely a bit too much for many people, myself included. Now I did, or I'm more like I will, pick up the bundle with Mario Kart 8, but that's a digital copy. The physical copy is something that I want. Now, I do understand for those that are maybe thinking on the other side, like, I get it, like, these games are going to be pretty high quality overall. I do think that Mario Kart World is going to be awesome. What they've shown off just looks like a revolution in the Mario Kart universe when it comes to playing that type of game. Looks like it's going to be packed full of single player and multiplayer content, and it's going to be a game that you're going to be able to play for a very long time. I don't know how many gigabytes it is, but I'm guessing with those new fast read and write speed cards and all that, it's definitely jumping up the price a bit. But I do think, hey look, a $70 price point would have been okay. People still would have been like, I don't want to pay $70 for a game, just like like they were with the Nintendo Switch 1 with Tears of the Kingdom, but it wouldn't have been as bad, especially when you have re-releases for that $80 if you want the Nintendo Switch 2 version on a cartridge. Now, I do want to clear up just a little bit of confusion. Some people think that you have to pay that price in order to play some of the Switch 1 games that are on the Nintendo Switch 2 that have those additions, but no, if you want, you can just play them on your Nintendo Switch 2 how they were on the Nintendo Switch 1 overall. You don't have to do the upgrade and get some of the stuff. There are going to be some free updates overall, which was explained, but at the same time, like, there is a lot of confusion going on with that. But yeah, to me, I think that the backlash in terms of seeing all the people on the Nintendo Treehouse Live say drop the price, and you're seeing it on Twitter, you're seeing multiple different videos with a lot of information from some people, but still I think the general sentiment is the same. Like, yeah, $80 or well above 70 or well above 60, more like it, well above 60 is definitely not something that people are willing to just sit down and say, okay, yeah, it's going to be this. Completely get it, 100% overall. But man, I really want to know what the cartridges and what the cost of those are when it comes to the teardown and all that. We know that Nintendo Switch 1 cartridges are expensive as heck. You know, they are super expensive, and I get that. But the consumer necessarily doesn't care about that when it comes to the cartridges and all that. Nintendo had a lot of problems last generation, or with the Nintendo Switch 1 and cartridge costs and all that. They never were really able to get the cartridge costs down to a suitable price because many different developers still didn't use the 32GB cartridge. Like, I think I can count on one hand how many 32GB cartridges there are. There are not many. It's like, what was it? The Witcher 3. You also had, I think, the Dragon Quest game, Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2. I think you had a Final Fantasy game. If you get the Asian version, in the US, it's like a digital code. I think it's Final Fantasy 10/10-2. Man, I think Tears of the Kingdom, I'm not really sure. Yeah, there might be just like a few. There's like a handful that I can think of off the top of my head that are the 32GB cartridge. So they never really were able to figure that out. And now you have this bigger, more powerful, much more powerful, according to NVIDIA, 10 times the graphical capabilities of the Nintendo Switch 1. Now you have these cartridges coming in here, and the price, along with inflation, potential tariffs, and other things that are kind of factoring into this, man, it's just blowing the price up. But I still feel that there could have been a way to get this done without having the backlash that's happening right now. And once again, yeah, 80 just seems a bit much, even with all those factors that I talked about. Now, I don't have the actual spreadsheets and seeing everything, but seeing all those people kind of rage and say drop the price, and kind of looking at that myself, people know what the Nintendo Switch 2 is. They want the Nintendo Switch 2. They're cool with the games. Like, it does not have the same issues that Nintendo has had in the past with some of the systems that kind of start out slow or end up not doing well. Like, Nintendo has a very valuable type of brand with the Nintendo Switch 2. Like, people want the games. They think that it looks awesome. But the only issue are those prices. So that's something that Nintendo absolutely needs to look at, reevaluate. I mean, even stuff like the Nintendo Welcome Tour, that should have been packed in with the Nintendo Switch 2. That would have been the perfect pack-in game, and I don't think it would have helped when it comes to the backlash with the prices of like Mario Kart or some of the prices of the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of the games that are out there. But I think it would have been just a little bit better, because it does seem like this Welcome Tour game actually has some cool stuff that's built into it, but it's a Welcome Tour, so it should just be there automatically on the system so people know, okay, let me explore this little game while I'm doing something else, or I'm installing a different game, or whatever the case is, right? So I do think that the communication could have been a bit better. I think that they did go over so much stuff, and even after the Nintendo Direct, there was a ton of stuff that they still had to go over that was just interesting to see. Like all the stuff with Legend of Zelda, all the different things they talked about, controllers and compatibility. There was a ton of things that were videos afterwards, and you know, you can't fit everything into it. The presentation was already really long, and people, obviously, there's a certain amount of mental capacity that people can hold with information until it becomes kind of overload, and they just kind of tune out and wait for the cool games to be shown and forget all the other little details. But at the same time, yeah, some better communication could have happened there when it comes to the pricing and some of the other things, because once again, I don't think $450 or $500 with the bundle is bad. Like, I think that Mario Kart, you get it for $50 if you buy the bundle, so the system is $450. If you buy Mario Kart bundle, it's $500, so that's actually not too bad overall. but the physical thing is where people have an issue with that 80 and the raging that's going on online. And it's even crazier on places like Twitter, which Twitter is always the extreme, and obviously Twitter isn't representative of the general audience out there, is not representative of the people that are just like the consumer that just want to get something, or maybe for Christmas or whatever. Most of the people that are going to buy this system are not online raging about anything. They don't care. They just buy what they feel like buying, and that's that. But at the same time, there still is enough for it to still be somewhat of a thing, and I would say a little bit of a PR problem overall for Nintendo. So here's what I would like to see Nintendo going forward. Like, a lot of people just rage and say they better just do this or whatever. That's not how they work. I think there's going to have to be a couple different things in order for this to change going forward. So the first thing that I would say is that Nintendo needs to come out with a clear messaging of what is happening with the pricing and with the system. They've came out and explained why the system is $450, in my opinion at least. Some of you guys might disagree, but I think that they've came out and explained why the system is that. You see the 120 frames, you see the up to 4K, you see the games, you see the HD Rumble 2, you see the compatibility, you see the enhanced features, the screen, you see the HDR, like all that stuff that, like I said, people have been asking for quite some time. It is a good value proposition, and you're not going to have to worry, like if you're looking at like the PC handheld space, you're not going to have to worry about the compatibility and the PC stuff that those other handhelds do overall. This comes with the dock, and it's a hybrid. It's got a clean Pro controller. It's got the chat feature. There's all these things that people have been asking for. Literally, the Nintendo Switch 2 is almost everything, pretty much everything everybody has been asking for, outside of like a built-in achievement system. It doesn't have that. There's some weird stuff with the app with the Legend of Zelda games, but that's just for those games. It's not a built-in on the actual system. So outside of that, they pretty much added everything else. The Pro controller is much better. It's got back paddles. It's got an audio jack. It's going to have voice chat. You've got like Discord chat, which people were saying forever Nintendo should add Discord. They just made their own Discord overall. It's got a camera to where you can do those things. It's got some cool innovative features with the mouse controls, being able to use that and shoot and stuff. It's got 2 mouse modes. Like, it's got all sorts of cool little things here and there that you might not use too much, but they're there if you want to use them. It's got a top charging USB-C port, or top charging for USB for accessories and stuff. There are so many cool things with this. Heck, the dock even has a fan cooled built in, so we won't potentially get those warping issues that we saw with people's Switches getting hot when the Switch first launched and playing Breath of the Wild that was about to explode the system when you had like bokoblins all over screen or whatever, right? So there's so many cool things with this system that they've added in that people have been asking for. It's pretty much perfect in almost every single sense. It's a strong system, and it's got the stuff. It's got the juice to really work well, and I think ultimately at the end of the day, like at the end of the system's life, it's going to do well. Prices could level out. There's going to be a variety of different things because the system is still very appealing. It's still very appealing. The only issue is the price, and everyone knows about it. Even though it's negative publicity, everyone is talking about it, everyone is discussing it, and there are people that feel that, no, it's good. You know, there's kind of back and forth. They're saying, hey, look, I like this. I'll pay premium for what I'm getting because it is premium overall, and the games look great. But at the end of the day, like, Nintendo needs to kind of come out and say, yes, we need some forward messaging with what's going on. I do think that the backlash, if it's enough, combined with the actual bad sales of games, I think that's when Nintendo could start adjusting what's going on here. People are going to buy the Nintendo Switch 2 because of the Mario Kart World bundle. That's going to do really well. The Mario Kart 8 Deluxe bundle did really well. And yes, it's pricier overall, but Mario Kart World just looks so much better. So I think casuals that want it, they're going to get it if they really want it. And of course, hardcore gamers that want that, they're going to get that as well. It's going to be a little bit tougher to maybe reach some of the extended casual base, but that's where your marketing budget comes in. That's where your touring comes in, like doing like the Nintendo Switch experiences. That's when really you got to make sure that you're marketing the system great to reach all the different consumers that you can reach, because $500 for a system is pricey, but if you deliver the goods, people will pay that for phones, people will pay that for obviously TVs, plus people will pay that for all sorts of cool electronics. All sorts of things can cost more than that, and people will drop it, even casual consumers, in the multiple millions. iPhones is one of those where every year multiple millions of people buy, even though they don't even need it, you know, and it's well more than $500 for one of those. So I do think that Nintendo needs to clearly kind of put the messaging together overall with the prices, what's going on with that, and what's their plans for the future. I think that if they came out and kind of said that and say, hey, look, we're doing this when it comes down to it, or here's why we've priced certain things this type of way, that would help a bit, but it would have to come with some type of action plan. There needs to be something in order to kind of facilitate people saying, okay, well, it's worth that. And for some people, it is, but a lot of people, obviously, they're saying drop the price. They're saying drop the price overall. Once again, I can't sit here and disagree overall with people doing that. I would love for it to be, once again, $60 if they can get it at 60. I don't like to jump to 70 or to jump to 80 down at this point. I don't like that. I like to keep the prices down for the consumers and everything, but I do realize that the prices have went up with inflation and other factors. But, you know, 80 just seems like a little bit much. If it was 70 for the newer games, or like all the new actually built for the Nintendo Switch 2, and then 60 for the Nintendo Switch 1 edition games on Nintendo Switch 2, or Nintendo Switch 2 edition games with Nintendo Switch 1 titles with the DLC and stuff, I think that would be a little bit better. Yes, if you have the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, you get the Zelda upgrades for no additional cost. And yes, if you want to just upgrade from your Nintendo Switch 1 cartridge to the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of select games, you can also do that. So there are other ways with it, but I think the main thing here necessarily isn't those older games, because people have those already. Those have already sold really well, so you can just upgrade them if you want. I think the main thing is probably just Mario Kart World. I think that is the main issue overall, along with some of those Nintendo Switch 2 titles, but that's not as bad as the game that clearly it's only exclusively available in terms of how you can buy it exclusively on the Nintendo Switch 2. So if Nintendo can address that and maybe say, hey, look, you know, we heard the feedback and all that, but maybe we're going to go with 70 on this one, I think that would go a long way. Wouldn't fix everything, but would go a long way in terms of saying, hey, this isn't going to set a precedent for the future, because I think at the end of the day, that's what people really don't like. They don't want, over the course of a generation that could last up to a decade, right, or close to that, they don't want it to where you're spending 80 on a game that you really want to play, like brand new, right? Nintendo doesn't drop prices all the time. They do keep their prices higher than a lot of other companies out there for the course of the generation. Spending 80 or near 80 every single time, it's going to rack up, especially with the amount of software that Nintendo has. Now, nobody's forcing you to buy those games, but at the same time, it's still one of those things for a consumer standpoint. If you like those games, you definitely want to see them priced a bit better, because over the course of the generation, it's going to add up, along with all the other stuff that you got to pay for, whether it's kids or rent or mortgage or car or whatever, right? Everything's just going up overall. So yeah, it'd be nice if we can, when it comes down to it, and we'll see what Nintendo's plan is, because absolutely they have seen the drop the price. They have seen that once again, and I don't think it's with the Nintendo Switch 2 system itself. I think that's okay overall, especially when Valve is selling that crusty LCD Steam Deck for, you know, $400. This is $50 more than that if you just want that. But clearly, you can get like the cheap Steam games and all that. There's other issues with Steam Deck, but that's not the point. They haven't been able to sell anything anyway. People obviously don't want Steam Deck and the ROG Allies and all of that. If people did, then those systems would actually sell, and those systems just don't sell. So people want the Nintendo Switch 2, but they also want it to be a bit better priced overall. So with this reaction and this rage, it's going to be very interesting to see what Nintendo's action plan is. I think people are going to keep it up, and I think that Nintendo's going to evaluate some of the things, but once again, the ultimate end of the day, it's going to be based on the sales here. Do people just say rage and then end up buying it? Is it a Pokemon Scarlet and Violet situation where people raged online and then went out there and bought it? It's about to be the second best-selling Pokemon game of all time. Don't know if it's crossover between those people, might be, might not be, but we're going to have to wait and see, because if everyone rushes out and still buys this system and still buys the games and all that, which I do think people are going to rush out and buy the system, but they're going to buy the bundle. I think a lot of people are going to buy the Mario Kart World bundle, and that's going to save them that $30 on it, at least here in the US. I think in Japan, obviously, it's going to sell really well. They don't have the same issue because it's priced better if you buy a Japanese region-only Nintendo Switch. So a lot of scalpers can't go there and just ship them off the other parts when it comes down to it. So if you buy a Japanese region Switch compared to the other Switch, so the dynamics are a bit different there. So I see the Nintendo Switch flying off of store shelves in Japan. They don't have that same problem. They don't have the drop the price situation that we have over here in the West, and especially in Europe with the games being, I think, like 90 euros or British pounds. I mean, I'm not exactly sure with what's going on there. I'm just talking about what's going on here in the US with the $80 for select games overall. But yeah, we'll see what happens, man. I think it's going to be interesting. But when it comes to the pure games, Nintendo still has an opportunity here overall. And I still believe the system's going to do really well because every single system almost goes through certain pricing issues and stuff like that. PS5 did that, and it's still doing incredible. Things will level out, but Nintendo has to have a plan for that. And of course, they have to keep bringing the bangers. If they keep bringing the bangers and the great games that review super well and all of that, then I do think that people, once again, are going to pick and choose what they play a lot more carefully, especially if it's $80 plus. And in Canada, it's like $100 plus in Canada. But the prices have always been high. Canada just always has super high prices overall. But what do you guys think when it comes to the rage that is happening with the drop the price online? Like, what do you guys think about all of that? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.